The Ford Ranger is one of the most successful mid-size pickup truck platforms in the world. Originally introduced in the 1980s as a compact truck for North America, it evolved into a rugged global platform before.
Why is this happening? Well, we've found out that the Ford Ranger is not selling for these 6 reasons. So without further ado, let's start the countdown. We're not 0 Rangers during this month, and apparently, part of the reason was production issues. According to our reliable sources, the production was conducting additional quality checks before shipping, which seems to have become a regular thing in the Blue Oval Company. Namely, the same thing already happened with a few more redesigned or refreshed models, including the F-150 full-size pickup, while the company also stopped delivering the F-150 Lightning after it discovered problems with the headlights. And if we take into account the fact that every single model year of the Ranger was recalled for something over the last decade or so, it seems pretty clear why Ford needed to do this, because otherwise, we wouldn't think of catching up with the competition. After all, the company has been losing billions of dollars annually over the last several years on recalls, while those additional quality checks and resulting fixes were estimated at $1 billion. Number 5. Prices. But you know what? Even when the company finally established production, things haven't changed much. The numbers are still below any expectations, so bad that the Ranger managed to enter the list of the top 10 slowest selling new vehicles on the market, spending an average 90.5 days on dealer lots, which is double the time of an average new vehicle. One of the reasons is the price. Pickups, especially midsize, used to be affordable workhorses, cheap alternatives to all those who didn't necessarily need the towing and hauling capabilities of an F-150 or any other full-size pickup. But guess what? The Ranger isn't cheap anymore. If you look at the current pricing, even the most basic version, the XL trim, costs nearly $35,000. For comparison, the Colorado is a little bit over $31,000 in the entry-level variant, while the base V6-powered Nissan Frontier is still $3,000 cheaper than the base Ranger. Moreover, even the Tacoma, which is well within its rights to pump its price, considering its dominant position on the market, remains notably cheaper than Ford's pickup. The Ranger used to be an affordable workhorse, but now even the smallest upgrade can cost you a few thousand extra. Mid-range models like XLT, which adds no more than a couple of safety and convenience features, cost way over $37,000, while the Lariat starts over $45,000. That's too much for a midsize pickup, even if you're a die-hard Ford fan. Midsize pickups used to be affordable, but it looks like that position has been taken by the Maverick, which starts in the mid-20,000s. Number 4. Recalls. But only if you don't take into account the fact that there have been an impressive number of recalls in the Ranger's recent history. Practically, it's impossible to find a model year of this midsize pickup that hasn't been recalled, as we've already mentioned. Just remember last year's troubles with the windshield. Ford recalled more than 24,000 of these pickups back to dealerships to get their windshields repaired. And that's just the beginning. Lesser, more serious recalls were numerous over the last few years, starting from the tailgate latch issue that affected 56,000 models produced between 2018 and 2020. Problems with the engine block heater cable were way more serious, with a big chance of catching fire when the cable is plugged into an electrical outlet. Or maybe you were one of the 3,500 owners who needed to get back to the dealership because of the shifter cable bracket, which was the reason why the transmission was often in the wrong gear from what was indicated by the shift lever position. The HVAC blower motor was yet another recall issued in 2020 for models produced in 2019, and why people are not rushing to purchase the all-new Ranger. Number 3. Engine issues. On paper, the Ranger's engine may seem like the real deal, turbocharged with plenty of low-end torque. It seems like the perfect option, whether you need something for towing, off-roading, or engaging highway rides. But still, we all know what pickup drivers appreciate the most. Yes, we're talking about reliability, which may not be Ford's biggest strength. To get straight, Ford has never been the epitome of reliability, but this engine is poor even by the Blue Oval standards. And the first thing that comes to mind is the fuel system. More precisely, it's about fuel injectors, which turned out to be extremely sensitive to less than optimal fuel quality. Once worn out, and that happens surprisingly quickly, they become the main cause of misfiring, lower MPG ratings, loss of power, etc. Another typical Ranger issue is black smoke coming out of the exhaust pipe for various reasons. Damaged piston rings and valve seals, miles, turbocharger issues. There are various potential reasons, but what concerns Ranger owners probably the most is engine overheating, which has become a pretty common issue with Ranger and other Ford models that use this engine. Once again, potential causes are numerous, starting from a malfunctioning thermostat or malfunction of other parts of the cooling system. Last but not least, faulty turbo wastegates, as many Ford models suffered from premature turbocharger issues over the last couple of years. The recent redesign also brought a new powertrain option, the 2.7-liter V6, which isn't immune to problems either, mainly in terms of the problematic valves that cause loss of power or even inability to start. Number 2. Transmission. The Ranger may be redesigned, but not all of its parts are new. For example, the base engine is the same, just like the 10-speed automatic transmission is, and that's been another problematic part of Ford's midsize pickup for a while. Among common problems with this gearbox, owners mentioned slipping gears and dragging clutch, as well as a burning smell while driving. Rough gear changes have been reported too. Once again, we're talking about premature issues. One of the owners reported transmission problems already after 50,000 miles, with complaints about slipping gears, clunked shifts, and other things. Cost a fortune. Clearly, that's one of the reasons why buyers are not delighted with the new generation and why they'd rather choose some other option on the market, as most rivals didn't have transmission issues so far. Number 1. The new Ranger isn't exactly all new. The moment the previous generation was reintroduced to the North American market, it was outdated, because that was nothing more than an Australian market model that was already on sale for 8 years. Therefore, it never managed to be competitive enough with key rivals. The moment the new generation was announced, our hopes were high, but unfortunately, the new model didn't meet our expectations entirely, because the new model still rides on the same old platform. Yes, it looks way better. The interior is way more upscale. Even the suspension setup has been updated and the driving experience is a bit better. But at its core, this is still the good old T6 Ranger. Once you get behind the wheel, that becomes more than obvious, considering the Ranger's infamous vague steering feel. As we've already mentioned earlier in this video, many parts remain the same, including a couple of critical ones, such as the engine and transmission. Altogether, we're not sure if the new Ranger is new enough to keep up with rivals, and judging by the sales numbers, others might be thinking the same. Speaking of the competition, the Ranger meanwhile got an in-house rival as well. With the skyrocketing prices we just talked about, it looks like more and more buyers are turning to the Maverick. Yes, it may not be as capable in terms of towing or off-roading, but on the other hand, it is more efficient, easier to drive, and significantly cheaper. We feel like the Ranger isn't good enough to justify the gap, especially if we consider that there's also the F-150 out there, just for a few $1,000s more. Thanks for watching and see you next time.